first question comes from Tally. So Tally says, feeling like emotionally I'm responding better, but I'm still feeling such a roller coaster of symptoms. How often did you purposefully trigger an adjustment period? I feel like I'm always in one. That's a great question. So it's really good you're responding emotionally better. That is the key to all of this, not responding with fear and panic and worry and all of that. But if you're still feeling a roller coaster of symptoms, completely normal. That is actually expected. That's part of the journey. So how often did I purposely trigger an adjustment period? In the beginning, I wasn't purposely triggering adjustment periods. I was literally just trying to get back to life. So simple things like pouring water throughout the day, warming up my food, standing by the microwave, going outside to get fresh air, those things would trigger adjustment periods. It's not like I was trying to just move for the sake of triggering an adjustment period. I was actually trying to do normal things. I think when I got to a more normal place where I was able to move around more and live somewhat of a normal life, then I would almost purposely trigger adjustment periods. Let's say if I was walking around and I wanted to take things to the next level and it's like, I want to start exercising again, or I want to start hanging out with friends more. Okay, well, let me do a little bit more of that because I want to do more of that thing. So it wasn't triggering adjustment periods just for the sake of triggering them on purpose. It was actually because I wanted to do certain things. So you want to look at it from that perspective, not triggering it just for the sake of triggering it. It will just happen as you do stuff. I always tell people, they're like, oh, how far should I push? Well, my question in return is how much can you handle? Because if you push too hard and do too much, the symptoms will come. It's just a matter of, okay, how much discomfort can you handle without freaking out or without the train going off the rails? Because it's not so much the activity that's important. It's like, how are you responding to the activity? That's the most important, or not the activity, but how are you responding to the symptoms from the activity? I actually created a video about this on my channel, the best way to expand activity. And I really dive deep into details of how to go about this. So yeah, I hope that makes sense, Tally. She responded, she says, yes, I feel like life just happens. Even hormones and poor night's sleep will trigger one. Yep, that's totally normal. Things happen, life happens, and just do what you can. Right? Sometimes we just have to be flexible with the situation. A big thing about CFS and recovering from this hypersensitive nervous system issue is it forces you to remove control over every situation. Because that's kind of what got you into this in the first place, is type A personality, overthinking, overanalyzing, and eventually it snowballs out of control where, your brain just goes, okay, this is too much to handle. So how most people get into this is because they try to control too many things and their personality type. So the only way out is to level that up and learn to let go and learn to be flexible and learn to kind of roll with life as it comes. And so set in your ways, learn to be adaptable. The more adaptable you are, the easier it is to get out of this. The whole point, the whole purpose that your brain is trying to teach you, it's like it's forcing you to adapt to different situations, adapt to new stressors, from small stressors to big stressors, So Isabel asks, what about food and caffeine? So Isabel, can you be more specific? I don't know what that question means. Like, what do you mean about food and caffeine? Maybe just be more specific with the question. Northern Stitch Creations asks, so if we can't handle much discomfort right now, is it okay to expand capacity slowly? As long as we are still making progress, is that okay if it's slow? Absolutely. Progress is progress. I think if you can't handle much discomfort right now, and do you mean discomfort as in like mentally you can't handle the symptoms? Because if you can't handle symptoms, I would make that the focus versus expanding activity, expanding capacity. Like in Recovery Jumpstart, week 1 is all about reframing the way you see symptoms, understanding what's going on before we even get you to try anything. Because recovery, at the end of the day, it's like trying to unlock a combination lock. We have to do things in a certain order or else it won't work. It might not necessarily be the wrong things that you're doing. Like you could be doing all the right stuff. You could be eating the right food, sleeping, meditating. But if you're not doing the first most important step, which is changing your response to the symptoms and understanding what's going on, then you could do all the right stuff after that and nothing's going to work. So I would focus on that first, make that the priority, changing the way you respond to symptoms, constantly reminding yourself it's just the nervous system. You literally need to do it thousands of times per day versus trying to move a little bit more and just every time you expand, you're like crossing your fingers, hoping. Valerie says, depends on how much your nervous system can handle. Yep. Oh, here's a good question. Tally says, any techniques for when we feel our body pulsing with adrenaline? That was me the last few days and now today. Boom. I tried to engage in calming techniques. So interesting you asked that because this morning on one of the calls for Recovery Jumpstart, we talked about this for like 30 minutes. All the weird neurological stuff, you cannot solve them individually. You're just going to be in a never ending cycle. I tried to do that for years and I've met people who tried to do that for decades and it doesn't work. So you have to throw all of those weird neurological symptoms under that umbrella of hypersensitive nervous system and work on the nervous system as a whole. It's like, okay, you're feeling a bunch of weird stuff today. Well, guess what? Your nervous system is just a bit hyperstimulated. That's all. It is no different from how when you add stress to the body, when you're working out, that your muscles are sore. Same thing. Now we just not overloaded, but added stress to the nervous system, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And it's just responding. So it's recalibrating. Just continue telling yourself that. It's really what it is. If there was a real problem there, then the doctors would have found it at this point. So it's one of those annoying things. But another thing you should be mindful of is when you get really annoyed at these symptoms, when you get annoyed or frustrated, those kind of negative emotions will keep those symptoms around longer because your brain knows your weak points. It knows what you fear the most, what you hate the most. It knows you more than you know yourself. Don't think about how much longer you have to deal with it because it's going to go away regardless. The more you think about how long will this stick around for, or I hope this goes away soon, the more it's going to be there because your brain is putting a magnifying glass on that symptom, right? So very important. So last, right, so I have a problem with heat over 75 Fahrenheit. Any suggestion? Yes, stay out of the heat. I talked to someone about this yesterday. He just joined the program. His big thing was the heat intolerance. He can't be outside more than 20 minutes in the summer. He's from Carolina. And yeah, that will fix itself. Same thing with actually what I just said. We can't deal with individual issues. We have to fix it as a whole because as your nervous system starts to become normal again, this won't be a problem. Mine was like both ways. I couldn't handle heat or cold. If it was even remotely cold outside, I'd start shivering like crazy. Or if I had a sip of cold water, my whole body would start, shaking. So yeah, don't try to fix that individual thing. Focus on your response to the symptoms. That will go away over time. I guarantee it. As long as you had all your tests checked out and, they haven't found anything. Isabel says, well, caffeine stresses me a little bit, but I love it so much. It makes me happy. Does it really make you happy though? Does caffeine really make you happy if it stresses you out and causes symptoms? Or does it make you happy temporarily because there's that small feeling of euphoria or feeling good or pleasure, but it kind of ruins you for the rest of the day? So it's a give and take. If you enjoy it that much, if it truly, really makes you happy, more, like happier than it does make you sad with all the symptoms, keep doing it. But if you want to get out of this for good, cut it out or at least wean off of it. If I drink caffeine, my heart's going to be pounding. I just have a low tolerance to it. So Kelly Grace, when you say hypersensitive nervous system, is this the same as the brain? Yeah, essentially. Hypersensitive nervous system, yes, you're sensitive to physical stress, emotional stress, mental stress. Your brain is part of the nervous system. It's what powers everything. So they are one and the same. That's what I refer to. Jenny says, what do you think about instead of thinking about how annoying it is, I just tell myself, the more annoyed I feel and the more negative emotion I feel, the longer this will stick around. So I just need to be as indifferent as possible and pretty much go back to whatever I was doing. Even if it was just like sitting on the couch, scrolling YouTube or Instagram. There wasn't TikTok at the time. I just would go back to whatever I was doing. The symptoms were like annoying mosquitoes that are flying around me. But when a mosquito is trying to attack you, do you get worked up? Do you get super frustrated from this tiny thing? Or do you just kind of swat it away and just continue doing what you're doing? That's what you want to do. The more emotion you have regarding symptoms, the more power they have over you. Those emotions are reinforcing it. So that in itself is brain retraining, right? It's not taking the bait. In one of the weeks in Recovery Jumpstart, we talk about how these symptoms is like bait. Your brain, the fear part of your brain is throwing out this bait and it's like, oh, is he going to take this? What's this person afraid of the most? Is it the buzzing? If it's the body vibrating and adrenaline, heart pounding, let's do more of that. Let's try to get a rise out of them. And if it works, then the brain does more and more of it. And then it becomes a cycle. Hope that helps, Jenny. I've got another question. Been doing things during vacation that I thought would really set me back, but the symptoms have been less than expected. How long before I can believe it's actual progress and not just a coincidence? It's funny, we just talked about this on today's call too in the program, because there's one person who just went on vacation, actually a couple that I know went on vacation and they felt way better. It's almost like the symptoms lifted during the vacation. And it's one of those things where when you're in a different environment that your brain does not recognize, it doesn't know how to run these same patterns it's been running. So you waking up in your normal bedroom, typical day, you get up, if you can get up, go to the washroom, brush your teeth, eat food. It's recognizing the walls, the ceiling, everything, the feeling of the bed, and it notices these triggers. And it's like, it just runs a script, essentially. It's on autopilot. It's like, wake up, oh, in the same room, okay, we're going to trigger the same symptoms. We're going to feel like crap today. Versus waking up in another country or another area, different room, different environment, different lighting, different everything. Your brain doesn't know how to trigger these symptoms and these patterns. So that's why you feel completely different on vacation, like way better than expected, because you're expecting that you're probably going to get worse when you go on vacation because there's way more activity. Even just getting to the vacation spot, whether it's a hotel or Airbnb, wherever, you feel like, oh, just getting there is going to wipe me out. But you get there, and it's like as soon as you get there, you feel way better. I had this so many freaking times during my recovery where I thought I would get worse going on vacation or going somewhere, and it felt way better. And it just has to do with your brain patterning. It doesn't have any of these other, it doesn't know how to trigger these patterns on its own. It takes cues from your environment. So when your environment is different, your brain shifts into a different mode, so there's actual change happening in the brain. It's not just a coincidence, because I guarantee you, here's what's going to happen when you come back, or it looks like you already came back. You probably felt the symptoms slowly coming back. And I guarantee if you went on another vacation somewhere else, the symptoms would start to lift again and you would feel normal. We just had a lady in the program, actually. Her name's Anne. She's been working so hard in recovery. She was stuck for months and months and months, completely bedridden, could barely stand on her own 2 feet without triggering severe symptoms. So she's been working really hard, doing a lot of other stuff as well. And then she went on vacation and that skyrocketed her recovery. So she went from being completely bedridden for about a year. And when I say completely bedridden, I mean like she's eating in bed. She's spending 100% of her day in bed. And then when she went on vacation, she was feeding goats, petting goats, standing up, drinking some, I think it was beer, but it was just super inspiring, right? So some of the wins that people are having, it's remarkable to see, and vacation plays a huge role in that. So if you can go on vacation, go for it. So there's another question here. I want to try and do a bit more, like maybe some easy exercise, but I'm afraid it's too soon and will bite me I'm guessing bite you in the ass. Yeah, don't do exercise just for the sake of doing exercise. Try to live your normal life first before adding in exercise, because you want that energy to go towards productive things. So for example, if I had the choice between hanging out with friends or hanging out with family or doing something I really enjoy, I don't know, going to the beach or something, if I had a choice between that and doing 20 push-ups, I would do the other one all day long. Things like basic chores around the house, do the laundry, do groceries, be able to cook food, go out with friends. Once you can do those things, then I would think about adding even just a tiny bit of exercise. Got a question here. I have long COVID. All my tests were clear. I have POTS, breathlessness, anxiety, panic attacks, and tremors. Okay. Is there a question in that? That's more so a statement. Sounds exactly like CFS, honestly. We have quite a few people in the program, actually. More recently, too. I think more than half of the people who enrolled for this August group have long COVID, but their tests were clear. So it's the same approach. There's actually one guy in the group, Christoph. Shout out to Christoph. He had long COVID. And usually people who get long COVID, they were already stressed to begin with. They were already hovering on that edge of getting CFS because they were burning the candle on both ends. So all it took was, a pretty big stressor to wipe them out or take them over the edge. CFS is caused by a lot of stuff. Well, I shouldn't even say CFS. It really is a hypersensitive nervous system issue. There are other things like CFS is under that umbrella. So this big umbrella up here, hypersensitive nervous system. We have CFS. We have things like fibromyalgia, hypersensitive brain to pain. There's, what is it? Long COVID, essentially the same thing. So yeah, the approach would be the same to try to recover from this. Tally says, my nervous system doesn't handle anxiety meds, even though I think it would be so helpful. I've tried several and feel so much worse. Any supplements that you know of? No, don't even think about supplements, Tally. You're already doing pretty solid. For gaining traction, don't even think about supplements at this point. We don't want to confuse the body even more. So just keep doing what you're doing, honestly. Patience. Sophie says, what you focus on tends to grow. Absolutely. That is the absolute truth. Okay. Vacation has also been at home, not just away in a new environment. That's what the person said about the vacation. Okay. So even if it's not a new environment, it's like you have less pressure on you from work. stressors, things like that. When we remove stress from the nervous system, and when I say nervous system, I'm talking about everything: physical, mental, emotional. When we remove stress in those areas, or at least lower the stress, yeah, you will absolutely feel much better. The whole reason you're feeling symptoms is you're past your stress threshold. And sometimes we get stuck there. So if we remove the stress, you'll feel better. Okay. Tally is very active in this comment section. So anybody else, feel free to throw in questions. So Tally says, I get to a point of feeling back to baseline, but a calming activity of just a boat ride, etc., puts me in fight or flight. Okay. I think this depends how big the boat is. If it's bumpy and there's lots of movement, it's not too calming. But it's like I get way too overexcited to make it through the activity. Any tips? Yeah. You're going to be testing activities. Some of it you won't be able to handle as well as others, so that's fine. Do what you can handle. Goes back to that. Do what you can handle. If the boat ride was too intense, don't do it again, at least for now. And then the last question is, I think I got long COVID too because I was recovering from mold toxicity. Okay, interesting. So did you get it from COVID or from the mold toxicity? The mold toxicity, that can... Okay. How do you deal with PTSD after recovery? Now I don't know the difference of when I get a cold or if it's CFS coming back. It triggers changes in moods. Yeah, great question. So when you say, how do you deal with PTSD after recovery? How recovered are you? I would ask that. Because a big thing is, if, it can seem kind of scary when these things come up. All a cold is, it's extra stress on the nervous system. So you'll start to feel more symptoms, even if you're recovering. So when you say after recovery, you're not, I don't want to say fully recovered, but you still have some way to go if you're feeling a lot of symptoms and it's just from a cold. So that's completely normal. A cold is just extra stress on the immune system, and that puts extra stress on your system overall. So it just shows that there's still a little bit of time left in the recovery process, but it's completely normal. And it will trigger changes in mood, definitely, because when you do have these adjustment periods, it's not just physical, but it's also mental and emotional. Very common thing to have. You might not even think straight. You might be more sensitive, more emotional. So that's just very common. So just continue doing what you're doing. If you already made it to this point where, if you can do more stuff and you're talking about after recovery, then it sounds like you're in a decent place right now. Okay. How did you stop fearing panic sensations, fight or flight overwhelming you and in the moment? That's a great one. When those times come where you feel the fight or flight mode to completely engage, you feel the adrenaline just being dumped in your body for minutes or hours at a time, you just kind of need to hang on for dear life. I always say this analogy: the journey of recovery, it's like trying to sail across the ocean in a boat, right? Not a ship, but like a sailboat. So there are going to be times when there's storms and there's waves, and these waves are almost like knocking you overboard. And the only thing you can do is just kind of hang on and stay as strong as you can. Find a pole, find some kind of strong foundation, hang on to it. Don't be thinking like, okay, I'm going to hang on to this. Should I go over there? Should I tie the ropes down? Should I do this and that? No, don't think about that. Just hold on for dear life. The storm is going to pass, and then you'll be back to where you were before the adrenaline hit, the waves of adrenaline hit, or the waves of the ocean are like trying to knock you overboard. The ship is not going to sink, but it will sink if you lose your composure and kind of go overboard and fall into the water. And that's equivalent to you kind of freaking out and letting your body panic. You will have panic sensations sometimes, or fight or flight, but you just need to know the science behind it. You're not going crazy. You're not going to die. It may feel like it, but it's really just adrenaline surging in your body. So you need to let that wave kind of die out on its own. So Brittany says, I got a cold from working out. Is that normal? Was there germs in the gym? Maybe. Well, I don't know where exactly you worked out. It might feel like you're sick after working out, because adjustment periods do feel like you have a flu a little bit. You get flu-like symptoms. So it could be that. That's what I would say about that. Adjustment periods pretty much feel like you have the flu. Your body aches, your head hurts, you feel hot, a lot of the same symptoms. How do the adjustment periods work? How is it different than a setback or mini crash? Okay, how to explain this in the simplest way possible. I've made dozens of videos about this, just trying to think of a way to explain it as short as possible. So essentially, adjustment periods are like adaptation periods, where your body is adapting to new stimulus placed on it. So I mentioned it earlier on this call, just like when you're working out, you exercise. The main goal is to gain muscle or get fit or expand your capacity for physical activity. In recovery, we want to expand our activity for everything, for life, essentially. We want to have more life. So when you work out, you exercise the muscles, go for runs, do whatever, and then you're sore after. In recovery, it's not necessarily working out. It could be something as simple as making your own food. going out to see your friends, going outside for 5 minutes to get fresh air, that might cause an adjustment period. And so it's stress on your nervous system because your nervous system is very hypersensitive. And that adjustment period is just your nervous system trying to adapt to it. Now, two things can happen when you're in an adjustment period. That when you get the symptoms flaring up. One, you keep your composure, continue to tell yourself, this is literally just the nervous system. It's adapting to the stress. I need to give it time and patience to adjust. And any more stress I add to it will only make it worse. So that's one. You need to understand it from that perspective. If you do that, you will start to show your body that it's actually safe to do these things. And you start to retrain it and it goes, okay, well, this thing didn't kill me. And, we didn't go backwards doing all this stuff. We felt symptoms, but it was okay. So next time we'll allow this body to do more of that. So that's option one. Option two is you start to freak out when the symptoms come. And I was stuck here for years. This is hard to get out of, but when the symptoms come, oh no, is it a heart attack? Am I going backwards? Am I ever going to get better? Am I going to be stuck like this? Am I doing all the right things? Plus 100 other thoughts. If you start thinking that way, you will go in a downward spiral because all those thoughts, that's extra stress on your nervous system. And as we know, more stress on the nervous system is not good. We want less stress because you're already past your stress threshold. So that's kind of how an adjustment period works. They're actually good. They're adaptation phases, right? If we try to avoid adjustment periods at all costs, that's kind of like working out and being upset when you're sore. It's like, that was part of it. Like we wanted that to happen. That was the goal. We knew that was coming. Why would we get upset if our muscles are sore when we worked out? Like it's black and white. One thing leads to another. So that's how you have to view adjustment periods. I feel like the difference between that and setbacks or mini crashes is it really comes down to how we handle it. Adjustment periods can very easily turn into crashes if you don't handle it properly, but you have the power to do that. Tally says, kind of back to the boredom thing. I wake up and feel depressed about my day. Not much to look forward to. What did you do to bring joy and happiness throughout the day? Thanks, Miguel. So you're probably thinking this because I know you're in an adjustment period. So the mind is more negative. I guarantee when you're having days where you have more energy, there are things to look forward to because you can do more stuff. It's only when you have to take a step back and slow down where you feel like you're missing out on a bunch of stuff. So it's just practicing that patience during adjustment periods, right? When magic doesn't happen when you're doing activities and you're feeling good, like that's not where recovery is happening. Recovery is happening when you have the symptoms and you're responding well to them and you're handling them properly. You're handling them in the best way possible. That's when the magic happens. So that's where you really need to buckle down and be like, okay, this is the time to get to work. This is the opportunity. What I do here is going to determine if I actually get better or if I stay stuck or if I get worse. Those crucial moments during adjustment periods are so important. Like I saw my symptom flare-ups as opportunities. I actually had a good association with them because I told myself this is an opportunity and this is exactly what my doctor told me. I know for you guys watching this right now, the whole reason you're watching this is because you've already seen so many doctors and they're not giving you answers, right? And somehow my content resonated with you. It made sense and you're probably hearing things that no doctor's ever told you, right? So that's what my doctor told me. He said, your recovery is determined by how well you respond to symptoms. Nothing else. I don't care how intense the symptoms are. I don't care what you did to get the symptoms. I don't care about any of this stuff. The only thing I want you to do is control your response to the symptoms. And if you do that, if you can handle that well, everything else goes away. All these problems go away and you start to have your life back. So recovery, at the end of the day, the very core of it, it's actually quite simple. Your recovery is determined by how well you respond to symptoms. So always keep that in mind. Obviously, it's a lot easier said than done. I know because I've been stuck for years. Luckily, I had help from my doctor who was in my ear for like 3 weeks straight telling me, do this, do this, do this. Don't worry, you'll be fine, this and that. Remember what we talked about? This is an example of your symptoms flaring up. Oh yeah, your legs are sore. You think you're having a blood clot. Remember that magnifying glass effect that your brain has? It's going to amplify these problems. So I had someone in my ear the whole time helping me, as well as throughout the couple of years after, asking people who understood this, am I going to be okay? Am I making progress? Yeah, I needed a lot of reassurance. So that's why I created Recovery Jumpstart, is to give people the extra help they need. Because something like this, it's extremely difficult to get out on your own. That's just the honest truth. Most people who get out of this, like 99%, have someone who helped them out of this, or some resource or some book, something that they had full buy-in from, or that they fully trusted to help them on their journey. Yeah, unless you're Raylan, then you can travel the world and start getting better from there. But even her, she explored so many different options to try and help and found out all the things that didn't work. So if you did need some extra help, that's literally why I've created Recovery Jumpstart. We're there to help you get better, see you recover. We've seen it so many times. So if you were interested in that, just click the link in my bio. You could head to the site. You have to apply because obviously, as much as we want to, we can't help everybody. There's limited spots, but if you're interested in taking things to the next level, feel free to apply because we can help you get there, right? There's a proven process for recovery. It comes down to just a few principles that you need drilled into your head so that every time you're faced with adversity, the symptoms come up, certain scenarios come up, you know how to handle them. And sometimes you need someone in your ear saying, hey, remember this, this, and this. Hey, maybe you should do this instead of this and this and this. And then it works, you know? So yeah, great question. Let's see. All right, we got Christoph on the call. This is Christoph from Recovery Jumpstart. How's it going? So guys, if you guys are watching this the whole time, then Chris is the one who had long COVID. Way better now, working full time. He was walking with a stick, literally, I don't know, 4 months ago. Hey guys, what do you think? To which intensity of symptoms can I push through? It's a great question. I think it depends on the person, because the further you are into recovery, the more confident you are in your ability to get through the adjustment periods. So for someone like you could probably go to like a 7, maybe even 8. I wouldn't recommend doing that often, but it's possible for you to do that because you've been through so many progress cycles and you know how the story goes. You know that every time the symptoms come, you know they're going to go away, and you just have that next level understanding. So in terms of intensity, you, Christoph, specifically for you, I'd say you could push to a 7, 8, maybe even a 9, honestly. As long as you're not doing that often. Do it very rarely, but you know, every couple months, you could do something like that. Every 2, 3 months, push it, see what happens. Because you know, you've built that foundation that's so strong that you won't really crash unless you almost like purposely try to crash. Because I know like you've ridden on 100-mile motorcycle rides, eat 2 cheeseburgers at the same time, catch a horse. So I know your capacity is so high for activity. It would take a lot for you to crash. But Christoph, we got to do our video too, like just sharing your story because it's pretty inspiring, man. From using a walking stick beginning of this year, not being able to move around, tons of pot symptoms, to doing what you're doing now, it's remarkable, man. You had the mind shifts. Okay, so Jay says, I have no friends due to CFS for 12 years. I notice my symptoms dramatically lessen when I'm really happy, like on a good date or meeting someone new who I like. How important is joy in recovery? Well, first of all, I'm glad you actually have the ability to go out on a good date, because I thought initially you might have been housebound or bedridden or something, but it's good you can actually do stuff. So your capacity for activity is actually pretty decent. How important is joy in recovery? I think it's extremely important. Being able to find joy in the simplest of things. For me, that's kind of how I got out. You know, I found things that I was joyful for, but I think the most important thing is not just joy, but gratefulness. Being grateful was one of the keys to my recovery. That was so important because joy, that's like a fleeting thing. It comes and goes. Can't be joyful 24/7. Same thing with being sad. It's a fleeting emotion. I think gratefulness is right in the middle of those two. I actually made a video about this. On one hand, we have pure happiness, elation. The other side, we have like depression. In the middle of that is gratefulness and gratitude. And I think that's a more sustainable feeling that you can have. So I think gratefulness is one of the most important. So Jay, if you have no friends due to CFS and your life is pretty lonely, apply for the program, because a lot of people in the program, like this is the highlight of their week, jumping on these calls, because a lot of them, they can't do much. There's no one to relate to. There's no one who understands what they're going through. Like, yes, family members, a couple friends will have empathy for you and they want you to get better, but they won't really understand what you're going through. So when you can get around people who not only understand it, but are also getting better, it just becomes normal to recover. And I almost guarantee, you know, if your life is kind of lonely, I can guarantee that you're searching up on like Google or Facebook groups, how to get out of this thing. And those forums and groups can be very dangerous because people are just talking about, oh, I've had this for 10 years, 20 years. Have you tried this supplement, this? And it's just so confusing. So I would say, yeah, surrounding yourself with good energy is so important. And not only just good energy, but the right information. Simple, easy to follow information makes all the difference, right? You don't have to like sit in your room and like do rounds and rounds of meditation for like 2 hours a day or something. But you know, it's the approach I took and it works. I like simple things. I like to simplify the process. So definitely check out my bio, click the link in the bio, apply if it's something you want to do after. Okay. Yes, the horse chasing one. Just had a beer with my friends. And Christoph, nice. The program, the cost really depends on access to the coaches and all that. We just need to figure out your situation first, so we know like what the best approach would be for you. Because some people just need the videos, some people need extra help. So just apply. We'll see what would be the best fit for you. Tally says, intensity. What if we feel like our symptoms are a 7 or greater? Pull back. It goes back to my question. Can you handle a 7 or greater? If not, pull back. Also, your perception of the symptoms is different based on how much you focus on it. Like if you're always thinking about your symptoms, a 4 can feel like an 8 because it consumes your mind and it's like all you think about. Whereas if you're doing other things, those symptoms might feel like a 4, like an actual 4 or a 3 or even less, because your mind is focused on other things other than just trying to keep track or watching it or waiting for that symptom to go down. If you're actively waiting for the symptoms to go down, then yeah, they're going to stay much, much longer than if you just went and did other things or focused on something else and let it go down on its own, because we don't want to put that magnifying glass on the symptoms. That's how they get stronger. So Jay says, I tried to do an enrollment, but my eyes couldn't handle it. Can you send me a contact number to do an interview by phone to see how I fit in? We do need some information beforehand just to help us make the most of our time together on the call. So honestly, if you could turn your screen brightness down on the phone or like look away from it, that would be optimal. Or else we're honestly going to spend more time on the phone call and then it might make you feel even worse. So like try it again, keep the brightness way down. So Northern Stitch Creations says, so the way to recover is to navigate through adjustment periods. Is that right? Pretty much. That's essentially it. Like without the adjustment periods, you'll never be expanding your capacity to handle more stress. So they're on the way to recovery, not in the way. So yeah, these are some great questions. Great questions, everybody. Keep asking. I'll probably stay on for like another 10, 15 minutes, but continue asking. Actually, let me go to the Facebook group because there are a few questions in the Facebook group that we had to shut down. Let's see. Or feel free to ask here, guys. Okay, on Facebook, there's this question. How long did it take for you to feel little to no symptoms? Which symptoms were the last to go? Really great question. This is from Mads Stigsby. How long did it take for you to feel little to no symptoms? Like at my worst, when I was in the hospital, like in ICU, to feeling little to no symptoms, maybe 2.5 years. I mean, no, that's not true, because there were times when I would feel no symptoms, like maybe 6 to 8 months after the hospital. But there were very brief periods. The symptoms more so peel off in layers. So they're just like less and less intense over time, and to the point where a lot of times you don't even notice them. Like when I was with my family at Christmas, for example, just several months after getting out of the hospital, I would still feel tons of symptoms. But when I was engaged in other activities, I wouldn't feel them at all, like 0 symptoms. And then once I go home, lie down in my bed, the symptoms would come back. So it's a hard question to answer, to be honest. The last symptom to go was the fatigue for me. Even when all the neurological symptoms left, all the buzzing, all like the headaches, the pain, heart palpitations, when they were gone, the fatigue was still kind of lingering, sometimes even more. So I also created a video about this. I can't remember the title, but I posted it within the last 2 months, but it's how the symptoms shift as you get better. They shift from more secondary symptoms to primary symptoms. So try to find that on my channel, right? Welcome Jackie to the chat. She's going to be in the August group. Christoph asks, do you think the symptoms I stress out the most linger the longest? If so, why? Yeah, absolutely. So we covered this on the call earlier, but this is actually a really good refresher so everybody here can hear it. Kind of like what I said earlier, the symptoms that stress you out the most have most of your attention. And when you have attention on certain symptoms, that puts the magnifying glass over them, and your brain tends to get fixated on those things. When you have fixation on these negative things, you tend to get frustrated and also a bit impatient. So the symptoms, in a sense, start to piss you off a lot, more and more over time. So the more pissed you get, the more emotion you have towards certain symptoms, stress, anger, frustration, the longer the symptoms stick around, because it's like a feedback cycle. That frustration, that anger, that impatience is a stressor, and symptoms are fueled by stress. So it's just that chronic cycle, right? Sky asks, when joints pain is going. Could you rephrase that question, please? Dixilica? Can you rephrase that question? Okay, so Jay says, yeah, DNRS didn't work for me. Not the first time I've heard that. You know, the program works for some people. I've heard it work for a lot of people. Yeah, so with this program, it's a very different approach, because something I tell everybody on all the application calls is you can't just have one approach, like one specific thing you do over and over and over again that's just going to help you recover. That's not how it works. They sit you down and be like, just do this enough times and you'll recover eventually. No, because we have to be flexible with your body. There's going to be days where you feel great, or not great, feel decent. There's going to be days where you feel horrible. And we need to learn to be adaptable to the body. So one, it's actually understanding what's going on, because if even with the best brain retraining exercise in the world, if we don't even know what we're trying to fix, we're always going to stay stuck. There's always going to be that mystery, that big question mark every time your symptoms come up. So one, it's learning the knowledge of what's going on. Number two, it's just doing it or having something to do that is possible for you, like something that's doable, right? So not everybody can just sit down there for an hour or two, do brain retraining exercises. For me, I know I couldn't do it. My max to sit down and just meditate or think when I was getting a bit better was like, I don't know, 5 minutes maybe. I have a short attention span. And 5 minutes, that's a lot for me. That's like the absolute max. So it has to be something that's doable for you, that's actually sustainable for you. So with this program, you're surrounded by a lot of really good people who are recovering. It's not extremely structured, and we try to make it work for your specific situation. There's also a lot of hands-on help you do get from the coaches, which not a lot of other programs do. I don't think I've actually seen another program where you can actually message myself personally. And for example, I'm feeling good today, or feeling decent. Do you think it's okay to go out and get food with my family? It's like, okay, well, based on your situation, maybe do this instead, or maybe wait until tomorrow, or we give you very specific advice. So there's the actual one-on-one help. There's check-in calls with the coaches. There's actual group calls with other people who are a few steps behind you at the same level, also a few steps ahead. And everybody in the program has that desire to get better. It's a very, I don't want to say intense, but I'm very picky with who I let into the program. Just, I want the right people in here. And if I think you're going to recover, then yeah, you'll be in the program. If not, if your mindset is not ready for something like this yet, I'll let you know. But that's why we do the whole application process, because we don't just want anybody in here. I want people I believe in and who have the highest odds of success, right? But if you're on this call right now, like you're doing everything you can to try to learn about this stuff. So the fact that you're even on this call, like an hour and 18 minutes in, shows that you do care about this. So I think everybody on this call is somebody that I would probably say, yeah, this would probably be a good fit for you. But then that's where the application comes in. Gecko Climber, cool, interesting name. Do you or did you have crashes when you didn't have a good sleep? When in your recovery path did lack of sleep not become a problem for you? Great question. Lack of sleep is always going to be a problem. Like, your body needs sleep, no matter if you're normal. Like, the best athletes in the world get like 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And if they don't, they feel like a wreck. So I think the symptoms, like the crappy feelings, are just amplified when you have CFS. Because if you think about it, going back to that stress threshold analogy, when you're sleeping, or at least when your body is asleep, even half asleep, you're recharging. And that stress threshold, say you have a limit here, when you're sleeping or in parasympathetic mode, your stress levels are going down and down and down, and it has a chance to recharge. So the next day, you add more stress to it. Stress as in like, it could be getting your food, it could be taking a shower, brushing your teeth, right? That little stress, it will be amplified in recovery. So you build it up throughout the day. At nighttime, the stress comes back down. Your body kind of resets itself. So if you're up here at the end of the day and you don't sleep, this level of stress never gets a chance to go down. So the next day you go into it starting here. So even just a little bit of stuff is going to push you over that threshold. Now, to be honest, for the last few days, I've been getting like, I don't know, 5, 6 hours, 4 hours of sleep. I would sustain this level of not sleeping for like weeks at a time. Now I'll do it for a few days at a time. Like tonight, 100%, I'm going to be getting like 10 hours. But the last few days, just been so busy. A lot of surprises coming for you guys in the pipeline. I might announce it on this call. I barely woke up this morning. I had to snooze my alarm like, I don't know, 15 times. It's like, hey, Google, set an alarm for 2 minutes from now. Hey, Google, cancel my alarm. Hey, Google, set an alarm 3 minutes from now. My head hurt, my body hurt. I didn't want to get up. Eventually I got up. Right now, my eyeballs hurt. So even at a normal level, if you don't get enough sleep, like, you'll feel it. Your body will tell you. You know you're a wreck when you're begging Google for 1 more minute, 2 more minutes. That's how you know it's bad. Like, so I still feel that, like, yeah. But I think for me, it was about maybe 2 years after the hospital, a year and a half, to when I could function with less sleep and start pushing my limits a little bit. So now I balance it out. Like this weekend, I'm going to sleep in a ton. Awesome, Jackie. Picked up the book. Cool. I'm at a year and a half. I feel as if I recovered, but I still have vision issues. Okay, so you're not recovered yet. It's hard to explain, but it's almost as if I can't focus my eyes. Yeah, totally. I know this feeling. Any advice for that? So right now, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Just accept the fact that, okay, you haven't recovered yet. Because you're probably telling yourself that so that you can feel better, which, it can help you feel better. But the truth is there's still some work left to do. You're probably close to recovery. You know, if you can go out and do a bunch of stuff, there are just lingering symptoms that will come and go. But that feeling where you feels like your eyes are out of focus, I know that the exact feeling you're talking about. Yeah, just one of those times, that's a sign that the nervous system is just a bit overstimulated, or not overstimulated. It's very stimulated, and you just need to pull back a little bit. That's it. But it sounds like you're on the tail end of recovery. But yeah, listen to your body, make sure you're pulling back when you need to. That's it. And you're going to become stronger. But that's very normal, like the blurry vision, all these different things, inability to focus, all that stuff, confusion, right? Yeah. So Dick Silica says, I have fibromyalgia. When that disappear? When will that disappear? Before, it hurt to look at screens. It hurt like someone closing the door in my room, my grandma closing the door after she brought me food. Closing the door, that would trigger migraines for me and pain in my body. Watching screens, looking at bright lights, it would trigger severe pain in my legs. Eventually, I did that breathing training exercise enough times, a very simple one, glowing and dimming. Check it out on my channel, to the point where, you know, I can go for runs, I can exercise, I can work out. I can put strain on my body and it'll be okay, right? I just have to make sure I don't overdo it and like not have these 4-hour nights sleep like many weeks in a row. So I just keep an eye on it now. But yeah, that can definitely go away. Okay, quickly 21. It's Christoph. Says, cool question here. How long does it take to really program in new responses to the symptoms? Great question. I think it depends how intensely you reprogram your responses. If you're doing it every single day, every few minutes a day, you're constantly telling yourself that, and you're doing it thousands of times per day, you're essentially condensing the time it takes to recover. Because with neuroplasticity, it takes a lot of intense focus. And I think it's repetition. Neuroplasticity is repetition. And to do, think these thoughts thousands of times per day, you could recover a lot faster. We hold the power for that. So it all comes down to how intensely and how many reps we do this stuff for. Honestly, I've seen it happen within literally 2 weeks. It's crazy. There's a guy you'll see on the YouTube channel, Max. He recovered. He went from not being able to walk around for 10 minutes to being fine in like 3 weeks. It was insane. He's going to like, I don't know, 10 different countries soon. And he's only been in the program since June 2nd, which is insane. It's just over 2 months. But yeah, for a couple of years, he was just stuck in bed, couldn't do much. And then the shift happened very quickly, but he also has that personality where as soon as he gets something, he understands something, he applies it. He has an engineering background. So for him, if it made logical sense, it was black and white. It was night and day. Yeah, like 6 to 8 weeks. That's actually why I made phase 1 of the program, like the initial 6 weeks. That's how long it takes usually. For it to be instilled in your brain and for those new neural pathways to be pretty solid, I've also seen it happen a lot faster. 6 to 8 is the average. But yeah, Jackie says, Miguel, sleep, we need you. Yes, I'll make sure I don't burn out. So I'm not the one in the program getting help from you guys. All right. Christoph asks, we'll go for like another 5 minutes here. But Christoph asks, how much does deconditioning matter? How much does the deconditioning effect matter? Yeah, it plays quite a huge role actually, because as you're starting to move around more, doing stuff that you haven't done in a long time, naturally your muscles will be more fatigued. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between, oh, is this due to my symptoms flaring up? Is it due to CFS? Or is it from the physical actual muscles that aren't strong anymore? And it can be a mix of both. It's usually a mix of both. So it can be a bit confusing for some people. I know when I started walking around again, or not even walking around, when I started standing on my own 2 feet, just standing up, my legs would feel like I squatted like 200 pounds. If I was just standing up for like 2 minutes, actually, that's more realistic. 2 minutes standing up felt like I squatted 200 pounds. So yeah, you just have to take that into account when you are recovering. So that way you don't get too scared or freaked out when your body is super sore and you don't panic, right? Okay, see you, Jackie. Okay, let's do one more question here. Jay, my light sensitivity gives me bad headaches, but also weak legs. Like my legs lost all energy too. Does the light glowing training work for weakness due to light sensitivity, not only pain? The brain training exercise for chronic pain will indirectly affect all the other symptoms because pain is a huge stressor on the body, not just physically, but emotionally. It causes a lot of stress. So once the pain starts going down, then other things like the fatigue, like the neurological symptoms will start to go down as well. But yeah, I found it really helped. Like when I would look at screens, I'd get headaches as well as pain and weakness in my legs. But the brain retrain exercise did help that quite a bit. So yeah, it works. It works very well. But it was great chatting with everybody. I'm sure it was really helpful for a lot of you guys. We've been going for like an hour and a half now, which is awesome. Lots of questions. I'm going to be posting the replay on this page as well as all of the questions we covered. I'm going to cut them up, turn them into snippets and repost them because I know they're very valuable. So hope you guys enjoy this one. We'll do it again at the end of the month as well. If you did want some extra help on your recovery journey, just make sure to hit the link in my bio, apply, see if it's a good fit, right? Obviously, we want to help everybody, but there's only so many of us and like coaches in the program and so many people we can fit in. So fill it out, see if you're a good fit and continue thriving. Remember, you are a thriver and you are just one mind shift away from living a life with thriving health. And I really mean that. You know, you could just be a few mind shifts away. That's all. So hope you guys had a great one. I'm going to go eat some lunch. Take it easy. See you guys.